Hello, Internet. 'Tis I, the amazing Flec. It's funny, I had a dear friend of mine say that I should start doing a little segment called Treadmill Truths. It had a good ring to it. I got to thinking about it, and I realized that I kind of have an issue with the concept of truth in general. If you're new to this channel, please know that I'm currently on a treadmill on break at work during a 16-hour shift, and I intend on doing a video post every single day this year. So here we have it. But today I really want to focus more on my exercise and not so much on talking into the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and get running on this treadmill, and when I'm done, I'll go on the floor and stretch out and we can talk in a little bit. Actually, why not? Let's just get there right now. Yep. Hey, how did we get here? Well, I'll tell you, it's the power and the magic of video editing. Well, I'm about to do some stretching. Feel free to join me if you like. And if you don't feel like it, that's fine too. Make yourself comfortable though, because I know I am. But what I wanted to talk more about today was the concept of truth and my apprehension about what seems to be true. And I say seems to be true instead of what is true and what isn't true, because it gets to the point of what I really want to discuss in this video tonight. What I want to talk about is something called E prime. I think it stands for English prime. It may or may not, but regardless of what it stands for, I feel as though I might have the meaning of what it is gathered more or less okay. E prime is essentially language without the use of the word is or a state of being. So it more or less sums up to using language that avoids the word be, being, is, were, was, am, your, I'm, she's, he's, they are, and taking out any sort of like declarative statements that determine whether something is or is not, or exists or does not exist in a certain way. It sounds confusing at first, and it's incredibly difficult. Now here I am saying it's, which is breaking my own rules, for E prime at least. It seems to be very difficult to speak in E prime, or it can be very difficult to speak in prime because it's not a way of speaking that we're accustomed to. The best way to get started with E prime is to start by writing. And if you write in E prime, you'll notice amazing things happen when you do that. Switch it up a bit again. Oh, that's nice. My hamstrings have always been tight most of my life. This feels great. I mean, you could stretch if you want to. You can stretch any part of your body that might need to be stretched. It's never a bad time to stretch unless you're in a crowded public place, which we're probably not right now. Chances are you're in the comfort of your own home or in a place where you can stretch. Unless you're watching this while you're driving, which probably isn't good. But here I am again saying isn't and is and isn't. But getting back to it, I first heard about E prime in a video documentary about a fellow named Robert Anton Wilson. Robert Anton Wilson is one of my favorite more modern day philosophers, writers, thinkers, and human beings in general. He was, I just said was. He seems to be a very intelligent person to me. The things that he had to say resonated very well with me as far as their truth value goes. Now I know that seems ironic to hear when I'm talking about being apprehensive of what truth is, and then all of a sudden saying that this fellow's work I found to be true, or I found truth in it. Why is that? Why does that seem to be that way? We'll get to that in just a second. So the history of E prime, as far as I understand it, it was the first concepts, the root of it, began with a fellow named Alfred Korzybski in a book he wrote called Science and Sanity. And this book ended up inspiring another fellow named D. David Borland Jr. to actually create the concept that we know today as E prime. And then, of course, Robert Anton Wilson learned about it, and he adopted it and promoted it in his film, Maybe Logic, The Lives and Ideas of Robert Anton Wilson. I've been questioned or criticized why I believe what Robert Anton Wilson has to say. And that's just the thing. I don't believe what Robert Anton Wilson has to say. I find truth in many of the things that he has to say. And also I end up parting ways and not necessarily believing what he believes. However, it's not fair to say that Robert Anton Wilson believes in something because he believes in non-belief. I'm not saying he's necessarily a nihilist and doesn't believe in anything at all, which very well may be the case. But what I am saying is that he had a skeptical way of viewing the universe and the world he lived in, and through that skepticism, he was more likely to discover things that stood the tests that seemed to be more true than other things. So it begs the question, what would you do if you can't use any form of being in your speech? Well, ways you can replace the word is, you can say that seems to be or appears to be, or you can use other lead-ins like in my experience, or I believe, or I feel that something blah blah blah. So those are just a few examples of what you can use in order to rearrange your sentences to fit the model of E prime. But now it begs the other question. Why would we even want to use E prime at all? What's the point? It seems ridiculous. Or it is ridiculous. I'm going to say seems ridiculous because it adds to clarity. How does that add to clarity? That makes no sense. Switch it up a bit more. It adds to clarity, or it seems to add to clarity, because it takes away any preconceived ideas of what you find to be true fundamentally, and it keeps your mind more open to the fact that it might not be correct, or it might not be that way that you initially thought that it was. It leaves open the possibility that there might be another way of viewing what you're viewing. A good example that has been used before is, instead of saying, the grass is green, you can say, the grass appears green to me. Instead of saying, rock music is the best music, you can say, I feel rock music is the best music. Or you can say, rock music seems to be the best music to me. It's a very subtle difference, but it has massive consequences. It's said that if you write in E prime, it makes your writing a lot more acceptable in the scientific community, because suddenly what you are writing about is a lot more accessible as objective information instead of opinions or faulty observations. It's also been said that writing and speaking in E prime puts you into a state of consciousness that Zen Buddhism tries to induce too. It's pretty interesting. Writing in E prime will allow you to look at your observations and recognize them as such instead of taking them for granted that they are what you think that they are. They will seem to be what they seem to be instead. It also makes any opinion pieces that you have to say, whether it's an article you're writing or a response on someone's social media post, a lot easier to digest and a lot easier to take in. If someone says, I think you might be wrong, or I think you may be wrong about that, I'm more likely to listen to them with a more open mind than if they come at me saying, you're absolutely wrong, you're not right at all about that. And I found that it's more likely to do that when you speak that way to other people. They're more likely to hear you out instead of immediately shut you out of what your perspective is on the matter. It's a lot easier to write in E prime than it is to speak in E prime. Speaking in E prime seems to take quite a bit of training and a lot of awareness into what you're saying and how you are saying it. I'm saying are again. I don't really ever beat myself up over not speaking in E prime. It's something that I like to do as a good exercise in my writing to make sure that my writing comes across a little more accessible to the people who are reading it. Writing and speaking in E prime makes it a lot easier for scientists, for politicians, lawyers, debaters, religious leaders, and people critiquing work in order to make their speech more clear and also at the same time more palatable to the listener. I encourage you to try it whenever you're talking to someone online, or if you're having an email or sharing a polite discourse, we'll call it, on social media with someone else that you might have a minor disagreement with. A fun exercise is to substitute any sort of state of being, that is, be, is, being, are, was, am, your, I'm, and take that away and replace it with the word exists, because that's exactly what to be or is or are implies. It implies that something is a certain way, and that's the way it is. So instead of speaking normally with the grass is green, you can say the grass exists as green. It sounds really weird and strange, but the grass doesn't necessarily exist as green. Those are our perceptions. That's our interpretation. That's how we interpret the data that comes into our eyes and into our brain. Some people are colorblind and the grass isn't green to them. Well, I can keep going on about this, but what do you say we just kind of fast forward ahead and we get right back to the Paisley couch? Like right about now. Hey, we're back at the Paisley couch. Wonderful. Lucy, I'm home. I'd rather change and get into something more comfortable. Something a little more casual. Let's just skip ahead. This is a little too casual and maybe a little personal. Well, this is nice, but maybe a touch too formal. Well, this is far from formal, but I'm looking for comfort, not ridiculousness. Besides, you're not supposed to see this yet. Close your eyes. Ah, more like it. Nice and relaxed. But to get back to the focus of the video, by substituting seems or appears to any version of the verb to be, seems to be a good way to address the problems that can arise from what we take for granted in our perceptions, judgments, biases, observations, and opinions, and ultimately allows us to view these things as what they really are, which is just interpretations. I mean, we are always interpreting reality when we take in stimulus with our senses. And it's easy to forget that we think that what we see is real. So this little discussion about E prime was just a way of dipping our toes into the water, so to speak, with what I feel are the inherent problems in human perception. Something I'm very much interested in. It's something that politicians, psychologists, priests, magicians, psychopaths, all these people seem to understand the inherent flaws in human perception and take advantage of those in order to achieve their own goals. In future videos, I'd like to talk more about the inherent flaws in human perception and discuss more things that are related to the issue, such as logical fallacies, different types of biases, quantifiers, and as well as the concept that was made new to me by Robert Anton Wilson in the movie Maybe Logic, called a reality tunnel. Pretty cool concept to explore and think about and consider. In consideration of considering, you might want to consider maybe liking or subscribing in the bottom corners, one of those two corners. Eventually I'll figure it out. But by liking and subscribing to these videos, it helps my videos be more available and seen by other people on YouTube. And it also helps me achieve my own goals as far as being a producer of videos on YouTube. I mean, you can subscribe if you feel like it. It won't hurt my feelings. By the way, Robert Anton Wilson wrote a number of really, really good books as well. The first one that I had my hands on was called Prometheus Rising, which is available online if you search for it in PDF format. I won't drop a link here because I don't want to break any rules, but if you search for it, you'll probably find it just fine. Another really good book that Robert Anton Wilson also wrote that was written entirely in E prime was this one here called Quantum Psychology. This one describes E prime in much better terms than I can, and the whole thing is written in E prime format. Pretty cool stuff. I even think that you can watch Maybe Logic, The Lives and Ideas of Robert Anton Wilson, somewhere online if you search for it. It might even be here on YouTube. Another added benefit is that it can also potentially stop others from starting petty arguments with you. If you say, I think that rock is better than rap, then you can have an argument that arises from that. Or if you say that A$AP Rock is a better rapper than DMX, you might have an argument brewing with someone who is very much a DMX fan and does not like A$AP Rock for some reason. I don't know why you would not like A$AP Rock if you like rap. But anyway, you can say A$AP Rock seems to be a better rapper than DMX to me most of the time. Or in my case, A$AP Rock seems to be a better rapper than DMX all the time. I mean, it's not like I don't like DMX. I just not a fan. Not everybody can be a fan, right? Just like not everyone can be a fan of these videos I'm making. And that's okay too. But that's not going to stop me from putting out more videos in the future. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. This was a longer one, but I hope you got something out of it here today. I really appreciate when people can watch the videos all the way through, and I hope that you check out the other videos on my channel. Please remember that every Sunday I will be releasing another instructional video on circus and flow arts. Pretty cool stuff. And that's a wrap according to my manager, Lucy the cat, sitting on my lap. So please everyone remember to keep safe, be well, stay humble, and peace.